Okay, so Reb Shaul asked yesterday, the Torah is telling us that we need a higher concentration of Ori Miklot in Gilad, in Ever Yarden, Shem area, because there was a lot of murders there. So the first question that we have to discuss is, Joel asked, is why is it like, what if the demographic changed? So there are those Mepharshim who say that these lands have a hashbah of ritzich in them. They're predispositioned to 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 cultivate murderous criminals. So Mamela, Baruch Hu knew that this area needs more. Because you have to understand, Shem was picked out a while before, long before Klal Yisrael even moved in. So the Eibishter already listed these are the areas where murder will be important. I wonder what that did to property values. The Olim who live there could say, hey, why are you putting me in Murder Central? But then again, people still bought properties in New York and in Chicago, right? The other question is, just because there's a lot of murders there, those means murders bemazed. So what's up to Talmud Ari Mikra?
Anybody could have given that teretz.
But the other question is, if there were a lot of murderers there, a murderer what's up a murder bemazed with an Ari Mikla? So if you learn, like the Shita in our Mishnah, that even those who kill bemazed run to an Ari Miklat, at least until it's kapaskint Mamela. But if you don't want to make that, because we have a Shita who holds that Mazid never goes to the Ari Miklat, which we're going to see today. So Michael Maimer, what is the fact that there's a lot of murderers in this neighborhood make that there should be more Ari Miklat? The territories we're also going to learn in the Gemara is what happens if a Mazid kills and he kills without Eidim. So Mamela, they're not going to kill him. And a Shogir kills without Eidim. So they're not taking it to Golos. So Hashem makes it that they should both be in the same place. And the murderer is sitting under a tree. And the guy B'Shogig was climbing up the tree. And he'll fall out of the tree and fall on top of the Mazid and kill the Mazid. So come to Chayis, whenever there's going to be a Mazid, there's going to be a Shogig. So if there's a lot of Mazidim, there's going to automatically be a lot of Shogigs because the Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to have to make the Mazid get killed. So therefore, you need to have a lot of Ari Miklat. At one of the pshatim that the Meforshim off. Okay, so that takes us all the way down to the Chevron Ir Miklat. As Shaul mentioned, just the last thing that we learned is an important thing to note is that there were 42 Ari Halavim that, although they were Ari Miklat, they're not koilut shaloi ladas. So we had a discussion. What do we call shaloi ladas? A guy went into the Ari Miklat. He didn't know he was an Ari Miklat, or he didn't know he was in Ari Miklat. So they talk about that a little bit as well. What if he was sleeping when he came in? What if he came in on a bus and he was sleeping on the bus, so he wasn't aware? So the Goyal Adam would be able to kill him. But it's just an interesting concept that Shaloi Ladas, it's not going to be Kodesh. Zok Gemara, v'Chevron Ir Miklahu, one of the cities listed off, the southernmost city that's listed off in Eretz Yisrael as an Ir Miklat was Chevron. Is Chevron an Ir Miklat? Vaksiv, we learned, v'yitnu l'kalev es Chevron kasher diber Moshe. It was given to Kalev, it was not an Ir Miklat. There's another Shita that says there's a lot of differences between the 42 Ari Halavim and the regular Ari Miklat. And there is a Shita who holds that when the Ritzeach B'Shoigig is in the Ari Miklat, he does not have to pay rent. He gets free rent. It's a communal city. It's literally a sanctuary city. But in the 42 Ari Halavim could be over there, he would have had to pay rent. So there were other differences as well between the 6 official Ari Miklat and the 42. Amar Abaye, Parvdoha. What does it mean that Kalev got Chevron? He didn't get Mamish Chevron. Chevron is in their Miklat. But Parvdoha, Dr. Rashi, is Kfarim v'Chatzeirim Hasumuchais Law. He got the suburbs of Chevron with Nikras al Shema, and it's called Chevron. That Nosnu Kalev, that was given to him. Dichsev v'Sadei Ir v'Chatzeireha Nosnu Kalev ben Yifun. Frank Demar Kadesh. Kadesh was the uppermost city. The Kadesh, Ir Miklat Havoy, Vaksiv, the Are Mivtzar. What were these? A list of the very strong, fortified fortress cities. Tsar, V'chemes, Rekes, V'kineres, V'kadesh, V'drei, V'ayin, V'chatzor. So who said that it's a contradiction? Why can't it be an Ari Mivtzar, a fortified fortress city, and be an Ir Miklat? Because with Tanya we learned, Ar Malolu, the Ari Miklat, Ein Oisin Loi Tirin Katanim. They cannot be small villages, and we're going to soon see, because since they were not allowed to leave, it had to be a village it had to be a city that had all the services necessary. It's a very small city. It might not have all the required services. They shouldn't be very large cities. Rashi says, very large cities have conventions and people are there all the time from different places. And therefore, if it's a small city, or not such a huge city, if the Goyal Adam is there from a different city, it doesn't belong there, it'll be noticed. But if there's a convention center in that city and people are coming in from all over the world, it's an international city, it's a cosmopolitan city, that could be a problem. It's got to be an average sized city. Rabbi Yosef, and for Rabbi Yosef, Kadesh was like a fortified city, but that wasn't the one that was the Ari Miklat. Tarti Kadesh, but there were actually two cities with the same name. Bashi, and you see such a thing. Going Slikum and Akrodislikum. There was a city called Slikum, and there was another city that was called Akrodislikum. So you find Kach Kadesh Ha'ir Mivtzer, the Irbenin is Smuchala, and the Kres al. So Rashi does tell us it wouldn't be in a completely different place. Sometimes there'll be Toronto and then Little Toronto, or Toronto and then Little Italy, right? Gufa Zok to Gemara. Let's analyze the brisa that we said that tells Lachas is qualified to be on the Ir Miklat. Actually, I should take it back. It's not which cities are qualified to be in Ir Miklat. The cities that are going to be Ir Miklat are predetermined, but how you have to furnish in those cities. So the cities that were listed by the Torah as Ir Miklat, you're not allowed to build them up. You can't make them Tirin Katanim. You have to make sure they're built up. They can't be very rural little cities like Bradford or something where you don't have all of your amenities, but it can't be a huge city like Toronto. Ella Ayaris Beinoiniyos. It should be average size cities. Maybe like Barrie. Bein Mashiva Noisan, Ella B'Makai Mayim. It has to be a place where there's water. In other words, it has to be a city that has irrigation, a place where it could be self-sufficient. As Rashi says, Kishanaflu Begaro, V'Meya Yeshua L'Leviim, Havil Lehem Amois. I'm sorry, that's Viter. That's Viter. And even if they don't have a bim ein shamayim, mevin lamayim. And if the cities that the Torah listed don't have water, you have to bring water to them, as Rashi says. They dug little trenches that would deliver water to these cities. That would deliver water to these cities, even from far away rivers. There has to be marketplaces there. Rashi says, so buying food will be easy. I guess even though the Kohen Gadol's mother cooked food for them, they still wanted to buy extra. It has to be where there's people there. Rashi says, there should be little villages around. It should be somewhat built up city. What are you going to do? You have a lot of murderers, so there's a lot of people who want to avenge the murder of their loved ones. They might gang up and attack the city. But if it's a city that not only is a city but has villages around it, it will be easier for them to protect themselves from such a force. What if it became a city like Toronto where everyone's moving out? What you do is you bring in people. They have to bring in people. You got to make oil them. What if people stop living there? So means if the suburbs around it were falling apart. What if the people living in the city were diminishing? Mavin lehem kahanim levim v'Yisrael. You bring the kahanim levim and Yisrael. There's a discussion. Vosef is kahanim levim and Yisrael. So there's one shot is we don't just want the people in the Ari Miklat, these murderers b'shoyig, to have food and stuff. We want them to have a chevra. we want them to feel socially acceptable. By bringing in Kayan Malin Yisrael, meaning people from all walks of life, the chances are he'll find himself a social group to be part of. That's one side. The other side is Kaihanim and Leviim have a special midah of Rachmanis, and we want people who are merciful and kind to be makar of these people. They morchen lahem, they morchen behen. Just like the liberals have a assault rifle ban, so too there was a ban in these cities. You're not allowed to sell like Kli Zayin, v'loy Klei Mitzuda. And Rashi says, you know why? Because the guy could slip into the city unarmed, and he'll come there, and when he gets into the city, there's a security check, so he can't bring weapons in. But what if he buys local? Look, Rashi says, Sham Zayin v'Yarim. So the Goy Adam won't be able to find weapons to be purchased in the Ir Miklat. If he tries to bring his own, they're going to detect it upon entry and they won't let him in. But what if he buys homegrown? Homegrown weapons, we don't sell them there. Claim Matsuda are traps with which they kill chayis, but technically they can be adapted to be used for a human. Diver of Nehemiah, the Chacham say it's allowed by the traps. The shavin she'ain person b'soichan mitzudais, but everybody agrees that you don't set up traps. Vein mafshil and certain chavalim, and you don't bring ropes. Why? Kadei shaloite regel goyel hadam mutzuyasham. The Mefarshim tell us that it wasn't a very common thing that was produced. So they were produced in certain areas which attracted a lot of foreigners to those areas to buy these supplies. So therefore, these types of manufacturing and distribution facilities should not be in a miklat because it's inevitable that it's going to attract people from out of the city, and that's
These criteria apply to the 42 Ori Levia also?
I assume so, because all of the Ori Miklat, we want them to be sanctuary cities where the murder.
So the highways also have to be built the same way for the 42?
I think so. Well, Tochen L'cha Derech is said in reference to the 6 Ori Miklat that the Torah lists. But Pashtus, the spirit of law, requires that wherever there's an Ori Miklat, it should be very easy to find, and it should be very easy to get to. And the Torah does say that we'll have to make more cities. So I think the Torah built it in that as required, we would have to add more. So Amar Yitzchak, my Kra, where do you see in the pasuk that the Ir Miklat has to have all these facilities? Rashi's the Masakninan Lahu Leroitzin Dover Shetrichalai. Where do we see that these cities have to be fully equipped so that the Roitzin that are there will have all of their needs met? We know it because it says V'nos el achas mina orim ha'el v'choy. He'll live there. What does it mean to live there? Ovid le milsa tetahava lechiyusa. Make sure to prepare these cities that will have whatever a person needs to live. Shouldn't have to leave the city. Tana we learned Talmud Shagala. What does a Talmud need? A Talmud needs his Rebbe. So a Talmud Shagala, Megal and Rabbi Imoy, they force his Rebbe to move with him so that he could teach him Torah. Shenemer v'chai over the midid have lechiyusa. What is a Lebanon Rebbe? That's the Rebbe. Amar B'zira Mikan Sholo Yishana Odom LaTalmud Sheinei This is a good lesson. A Rebbe should be very selective with this Talmidim. He shouldn't take in a Talmud who might be a Hayrik B'shoigig, because it might cause him to have to uproot his whole family and move to the Miklat. But if your type of Talmidim you have are edel people who generally aren't going to be involved in these types of things that it could lead to a Misa, you're going to be much better off. As Rashi says, "L'talmud she'enei hagen shelo yiviyeu avoy noisav l'dei hariga b'shoigig v'gala." A person doesn't stop kill b'shoigig. A person did a virus which brought him into this terrible situation. Nobody wants to be a harig b'shoigig. Merely being a harig b'shoigig is an einish in and of itself for a virus that someone might have done. The Amrina Lekaman, the Gemara is going to tell us in Namad Bey she'enei motzi ela b'rishoyim. Only Rishoyim kill b'shoigig. There's actually a whole shaila. We're going to discuss. We're going to have rise from the Gemara. Will a Hoyrig B'Shoigig be a kosher eight? He's called a Rasha. Al Toshish Yotchaim Rasha Liyeset Chamas. Right. So we'll have to see. Amar B'Yochanan Harav Shagola. What if a Rebbe went into Golos? The halach is megalin yeshiva so imay. His whole yeshiva gets relocated to the Ir Miklat. And he's that so. Why would a Rebbe have to go into Golos in the first place? Minayin the Divitor and Colton. Torah itself is koilet. So a Talmud Chacham learning, the Goyal Adam wouldn't be allowed to kill him. So why does he need to travel to an Ir Miklat? Let his Torah be protecting him. Shedemar is Betzer by Midbar, when the Torah is listing off the different places of the Ir Miklat, and Uksiv Basrei v'zoy Torah. So we see that the Torah is also considered a sanctuary city. While he's actually orangutan and learning, then a Goyal Adam wouldn't be able to kill him. But if he's mafsik, there the Goyal Adam could get him. Similar to, we're going to have stories where the Malach HaMavis couldn't access any people like David HaMelech, and we'll see other people while they're learning. My koiltin, you know what koilt means? It doesn't mean Torah is going to protect you from a Goyal Adam. It's to mean Malach HaMavis. It's only going to save you from the Malach HaMavis. Hiyad Rab Chisda have a Yosy the Goris the Veirav. Rab Chisda was sitting and learning. And the shliach of the Malach HaMavis couldn't get to him. Why? They have a shosik pume migirsa. He wasn't mafzik for a moment from Torah, so we had to distract him. So Solok v'Yosef Arza de Beirav, he sat on the main pillar of the Bismedrish. Paka Arza, he caused it to be uprooted, and that created a big tumult. V'Shosik, and for that moment, when he was startled, Rab Chisda stopped learning, and v'Yochale, and that gave the Malach HaMavis an opportunity, a window of opportunity to take his neshama. There are those Rishonim who ask, why didn't the Gemara bring a raya from David HaMelech? So the teretz is, David HaMelech had other huge schusim to protect him. So the Gemara could have been doicha that it's not Torah. It was Torah together with all the other schusim that David HaMelech had. But by Reb Chisda, we know it's only because of his Torah, and that's where the Gemara brought a raya from Reb Chisda. Amar Abtanchum bar Chaniloi. It says, Vayishma Ruvain Vayatzileu Miyodam. Why? I'm sorry. Reuven is Batal Chila. When the Torah lists off the cities that are Or Miklat, the first city that the Torah lists off is in the Chelek of Shevet Reuven, as it says in the Pasuk. It says right in the Pasuk. Let's read it. It says, "As Betzer by Midbar, be'eretz Hamishar la Reuveni." So the first city listed off was Betzer, which is in Chelek Reuven. Vosabes Reuven was zoichet to be the first shevet mentioned in reference to the Ari Miklat. Teretz is because he himself started off Batala. He was the first person who came to Yosef's defense. So the Mefarshim asked, Knacker, what did Reuven do? Reuven said, let's not kill him, and what was in those boyros? My main boy, my main boy, that's called Hatzolah. That's Reuven's gracious. You know, the halacha is that if someone sees somebody fall into a bar with Nochoshim Vakrovim, but didn't see the person die, that Edis would be matter his wife. So this is the Grois Hatzolah that we're crediting Reuven with. So Rabbi Raza said over a beautiful, beautiful word. They wanted to outright kill him. Now it's known that even though a person is not deserving of Misa, there's Bechira in the hands of murderers to kill someone, even though it's not his time to die. So Reuven said, how could you do that? If you do that, then you want to say that he was Chayv Misa because of all of the tinies that we have on him, and this and that. If you kill him, you're not going to ever be exonerated. Because if you were wrong, we know the Rabban Shalom, let's murderers kill, even though a person should get killed. Let's throw him into a bar of Nechashim Vakravim. Leave it into the hands of Hashem. If he's Chayiv Misa, he'll get killed. Right? And if he's not, then he won't get killed. So it was Be'emes Hatzolah, because he says, put it into the hands of Hashem, and Hashem won't let him die. So that's why it was considered a Bayatzileu Miyod. Dor Rab Samloi. My dechziv oz yavdul Moshe shalosh harim be'ever hayarden mizracha shemesh. Then Moshe Rabbeinu separated 3 cities in Ever Yarden. Now we know that they had no validity as a sanctuary city until the Rosh
Till
Hashanah.
they were all established.
Relevant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, till they were all established. Yeah.
Right. So Amalek Hakadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Hazrach Shemesh L'Roitzchem. Shine a light on the Roitzchem. In other words, give them hope right away. Do it now. Ikadamri, or it was a comment that Hakadosh Baruch Hu made after Moshe Rabbeinu did it, and he said, "Good for you, Moshe. His rachta shemesh l'roitzchem. You help the roitzchem. Dosh Rab Simoy, my dechsiv oyev kesav lo yispa kesav. Someone who loves money will never have enough. The more money he makes, the more money he wants. Umi oyev bahamoin, and someone who loves hamoin loy tvua. We're going to see what that is referring to shortly. So first, oyev kesef lo yispa kesef. You know that's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. He wanted to chap mitzvahs and he never had enough mitzvahs. So what's the big rush to separate these cities? They're not valid anyway. But he said, the Amar mitzvah shaboli yadi, Rabbanan should tell me to do it. Akaimena. I want to be mekayim it as quickly as possible. Oyev kesef lo yispa kesef. You don't give up an opportunity to make money, and you don't push off that opportunity. You grab it as soon as you can get it. Umi oyev ba'moin loy svua. So we darshan lemi noah lelamoid bahamoin. Who is someone who's roya to teach Torah? Barabim misha kol tvua shaloi. Somebody who all the tvua is his, meaning he is a big Talmud Chacham. Rashi says, "L'lamed b'amoin lidrosh barabim shekol tvua shaloi shabaki b'gemara b'mishnah u'v'halachos u'v'haggados." So v'hainu da'amar Rabbi Elazar, and this is what Rabbi Elazar said. My dichsev, it says in the pasuk, "Mi malel gevuras Hashem." Who is someone who should say over the gevuras of Hashem? Who should be teaching Torah? Yashmiya kol tehilasai. He should give the full praise to Hashem, meaning l'mi noah limalel gevuras Hashem. Who is Zoicha? For who is it appropriate to talk about the Gevuras Hashem? Mishayachol lahashmiya kol tehilasai. Someone who can give over all of the godliness of the Rebbeinu Shalom, meaning, as we said earlier, that he's a baki in kol ha'Torah kula. Rabbanon v'tema Rabba bar Mori Omar mi oyev b'hamoin loy sevua. What does that mean? Kol ha'oyev Talmidei Chachamim, this melamed is taken out. Kol ha'oyev Talmidei Chachamim b'hamoin loy sevua. Someone who loves Talmidei Chachamim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give him the same thing, meaning meaning that he'll have children. He'll have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. Let's have a look. Rabbanan v'tema Rav Mori Amri mi'oyev b'hamoin ha'oyev Talmid Chacham. So you see, Rashi says, takes out the word lilamed, and he puts in the word Talmid Chacham. Someone who loves Talmidei Chachamim, such a person, the Torah is going to come back to him, and he's going to have children and grandchildren that are Talmidei Chachamim. Someone who likes the Rabbanon, havin lei benin Rabbanon. So who was such a person? Zok Gemara, this would be a great vote of confidence. Yahavu be'Rabbanei nayu be'Rava b'rei de'Rabba. They looked at Rava b'rei de'Rabba. He was someone who loved Talmidei Chachamim, and he had children that were Talmidei Chachamim. Like Rashi says, Shayu oyev Talmidei Chachamim b'Yoser. He had an extreme love towards Talmidei Chachamim. V'ayu loy bonim Talmidei Chachamim. Rav Ashi Amar, Kol oyev lilmoid b'hamoin. If someone likes learning barabim, someone who likes to learn barabim, loy sevua. He will have sevua. He will have children that are Talmidei Chachamim. So Rashi's limud b'hamoin is im chaverim rabbim. He likes to learn barabim. That's what we do in the Daf Yomi. We learn barabim. If you learn barabim, loy sevua. You have children Talmidei Chachamim. V'hainu de'amar Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina my dechsiv cherev el habadim. So Pashat the Pshat in this pasuk is cherev el habadim. The fakers, the fake Oivdei Avodah Zarah are going to be killed with a cherev. V'noyalu, and they will be humiliated because their Avodah Zarahs will not come to their defense. But we darshan it differently. It's cherev al tzavorai soineim shel talmidei chachamim, which is loshen sagi nor. The Gemara doesn't want to say cherev. There's a dion, there's a kitruk on the talmidei chachamim, so it says soineim shel talmidei chachamim. But what's the kitruk of the talmidei chachamim? Sheyoshvin v'oiskim b'torah bad bevad. They don't learn barabim. They don't learn together. They learn individually. That's cherev al abadim, meaning it's an avla that talmidei chachamim isolate themselves and don't learn with the rabbim. They have to learn with the rabbim as well. Not only that, if someone never learns barabim, he only learns isolated by himself, he will become a tippish. Because the lashon pasuk is cherev al abadim v'noyalu. V'noyalu could refer to a tippish. Where do you see v'noyalu refers to a tippish? Ksivacha v'noyalu, uksivasam asher ne'alnu. So which asher ne'alnu asher chatanu. V'lo yoid el asher chaytim. Not only to make it stupid, it leads to making affairs. Because it allows him to entertain bad thoughts and bad ideas, and then it leads to doing affairs. No asher chatanu. V'boyisema mehacha. It says ne'alu sorei soyan. Zokt Rashi. Ne'alu sorei soyan. So Rashi says the raya is from a words that are later in the pasuk, because it says Ne'alu sorei soyan, followed by in the same pasuk nisu sorei noy. So nisu is to be noisachet alma noyel nosalach. You see, noyel becoming foolish leads then to doing affairs. Ravina Amar, Ravina said, Kol ha'oyev lilamed b'hamoyim. Anybody who likes to teach barabim loisavu. So Rav Ashi said lil moed, and Ravina said lil amed. V'anu d'Amar Rebbe harbe Torah lamadti miraboisai u'mechaver Yosy mehem u'mitalmidei Yosy mekulam. The mile is to teach barabim, because when you teach, you end up learning more. Now the question is, Rav Ashi was younger than Ravina. So why does it quote Rav Ashi's memra first? So Rashi touches on this kasha, and Rashi says the following: Rav Ashi Omar, b'der Rav Ashi garsinin lil moed, and b'der Ravina garsinin lil amed. So Rashi is telling us that Rav Ashi is talking about lil moed to learn barabim, and Ravina is talking about lil amed barabim to teach barabim. What is the significance of that to the order? So let's have a look at the Gilyon Hashas. Zok the Gilyon Hashas, Rotzel Ataritz. Why did Rashi point this out? Because he wanted it for Emperor Akasha. The Lama Hikdim Rishon Divi Rabashi L'Ravina. Why should the Gemara share the words of Rabashi before the words of Ravina? Ravina Kashash Minei. Ravina was older, so the Gemara should have first quoted what Ravina said. Zeh cost of Rashi learned in Rabbi Kiveger. That's why the Rashi spoke out. The Divi Rab Ashi was Lil Moed, Ravina is Lalamed. So normally you learn first and then you teach. So that's why it was put in this order. Mishamochi Nokat Keseder Lil Moed, which was by Rabbi Ashi, Yachal Lalamed, which was by Ravina. Gevalti. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Okay, thank you very much, Rabbi. I got my son yesterday. I was sleeping by the time he came home. Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. My dechsiv. It says in the pasuk, Oim dois hayu raglenu. Our feet were standing b'sharayich Yerushalayim. So we darshan it. Oim dois hayu raglenu. You know why we were able to stand and triumph in war and win over and conquer our soinim? Migorim l'raglenu sheyamdu b'milchama. It's because b'sharayich Yerushalayim, Shara Yerushalayim, shayu oiskim b'Torah, because they were oisik in Torah. Now, this is an extremely important Gemara, because the Gemara is telling us, and we see this as a very big distinction between the life of Chizkiyahu and Achaz. Achaz was the father of Chizkiyahu, right? Now, Achaz was known to be a bad king. Chizkiyahu was a good king. He dragged his father's bones around. But it's not so simple. When you analyze the psukim, the Gemara even praises Achaz. You know the Gemara praises Achaz? We learned it in Tanajid. The Gemara said Achaz was praised, and if you remember, the Gemara says, why wasn't Achaz listed as one of the three kings that don't have a chelik le'olam haba? Why is he different than Achav? Why is he different than Yeravam, right? Why is he different than Menashe? You know why? Dr. Gemara, because when he met the Novi, Yeshaya, he covered his face. He was embarrassed. He couldn't face him. He knew he was doing an avla, and he couldn't face him, so he covered his face. That's what it says. So Achaz was be'etzem a good guy. So what shot? Why? What did Achaz do? Why did Achaz close all the shuls? Why did he do that? So it's brought down because Achaz knew that he had an enemy Sancheir, and they needed an army. Yes, learning is a wonderful thing, and without learning, he was not against learning. But right now, we need to mobilize, and we don't have time. We don't have time to spend. We don't have time to spend focusing on learning. Right now, we need to train our soldiers. We need to make a draft, and we need to fight a war. But that wasn't the right way to fight Sancheiriv, because who won Sancheiriv? Who conquered over Sancheiriv? Chizkiah did. What did Chizkiah said? He said the draft is over. Everybody needs to go into the Beis Medrash. And he said, he put a sword, he took the weapons that were retired from use in war, because this is not how you win over Sancheiriv. He took a sword and he put it by Beis Medrash. He says, Misha loy loy my Torah yidaker bezu. There's no chiv misa for someone who doesn't learn Torah. He means that you know how we're going to win Sancheiriv by learning Torah. If you don't learn Torah, you're going to get killed by Sancheiriv's sword. So my father had it all wrong. He did it L'Shem Shemayim. He thought he was helping Klal Yisrael, but he was making a huge mistake. He didn't know how you triumph over your enemies. You triumph over your enemies with enemies, and that's mamish what this pasuk says. Only because of B'Sharayich Yerushalayim. Chizkiah HaMelech understood that. Migorim l'Raglenu Sheyamdu b'Milchama Shari Yerushalayim She'oshku B'Torah, and that's why Achaz was saved. Achaz was saved, and he was zoicha to Gan Eden. He just had to go through Yisurim, and that's why Chizkiah HaMelech dragged his father's bones, because Be'etzem Achaz was not royu to lose his Olam Haba. Because Be'etzem what he did it in his misguided thought that that's what Klal Yisrael needed to protect them from enemies. It was a lack of Amunah. That's the whole difference between Achaz and Chizkiah. Achaz didn't have Amunah. He didn't think that the Rebbeinu Shalom could take care of him. He had to fight his own battles. But Chizkiah, he had Amunah. He knew that the only way to triumph over your enemies is with the Torah. Rabbi Shub ben Levi, my dechsiv, Shir Ma'alois LeDavid. Samachti ba'ayim li Beis Hashem Melech. I'm happy when I'm going to Beis Hashem. Amar David of Kadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom. Shemati b'nei Adam. So you I heard people want to get rid of me. They want me to die already. They're saying Masa Yom Zokenze. Wenn der Alterskisten starben, the guy was not even 70 years old. Was Alterskist, 70 is young. But that's what they're saying about him. We want the Beis HaMikdash already. We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to let David HaMelech build the Beis HaMikdash because he killed too many people. He was involved in too many wars. Zolzani prepared all the supplies, but Atkan, he wasn't allowed to build. We want the Beis HaMikdash. So when is Shlomo going to be in charge so we can have our Beis HaMikdash? V'nala l'regel v'simchasi, and we'll have to smile. Omar loy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Dain Torah is better than Allah Karbonis. Ki toiv yoim b'chatzerecha me'elef. Toiv li yoim echad. The I value the Torah of one day that you're Isaac b'Torah. Your Torah is more aziz to me. They might want the Beis HaMikdash, but let me tell you, I want you. I love your Torah, and the Torah that you learn is better to me than all the Kabbalas. They had to make it easy to get to the Ari Mikla. Tanya Belazar Aimer, what they would do is they would make street signs pointing out the direction needed to travel to get to they had ways. Miklat, Hoya, Kosuv, Al Prashas Derachim. Whenever there was a split in the road, there was a big prominent sign showing this way to the Ir Miklat, Kadesh Yakar, Haritzeach, V'yifnu L'Sham, so that the Ritzeach should recognize it and know where to go. Amar Kana, Mikra, says Tachin l'chaderech, prepare the way. Aseilach hachana l'derech, create a hachana so that we will know exactly where we need to go. The Gemara shares many different Amiroyim taught the sugya of Retzeach, of our Miklot, and they all started off with an introduction. And the Gemara shares with us the different introductions that different Amiroyim used, and this introduction was from Reb Chama Bar Chanina. Toy v'yasher Hashem. Hashem is good, Hashem is correct. Why? Al kain yoyrech hatom bader. That's why he will guide chatoim in the right path. And he said, and that's why Hashem makes it so easy for even a Rasha to go to the Ari Miklat. So we can make a kavachayim im lechatoim yoyer, kavachayim letzadikim, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take care of us. Rab Shimon Lakish Pasach Lapis Cholai Parshas Mayaka. He used a different introduction. This Vasher Loit Tzida. If a person wasn't hunting someone to kill them, it was not b'mezid. But Elokim Ina Liyadoi, Hakadosh Baruch Hu made it happen. Kasher Yoimar Mashal Akadmoini, like the Mashal Akadmoini referring to the Rebbeinu Shalom, when the Torah said, "May Rishoyim Yetze Resha." From Rishoyim kumt ois rishus. What does that mean? Zok the Heilige Rashi. V'lekim ina liyodoi zeu shomar kosov dosav v'shteitin pasuk kasher yoimer moshel akadmoini merishoyim yeshiresha. Moshel akadmoini zok Rashi hi Torah shehi mishal hakadosh baruch hu, because it comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom shu kadmoini shalolam. He's the one who precedes the world. The Hi Amra, and the Torah says merishom yetze resha. From Rishoyim kumt ois resha. So this is where we're saying that even a hayrik b'shoigeg is considered a Rasha. Now we need to know if he says Rasha, will he be kosher laedus? That we're going to see in a different Gemara. V'heichan Amra, where does it say? Where does it say Merisham Yotzer Rasha? Where did Hakadosh Baruch Hu say that? Because it says V'lekim ina liyadoi. V'heich Hakadosh Baruch Hu mamshi mamtzi mirshal olam lachtoi. What do you mean Hashem helped him kill? Hashem made it that this person should kill. How is it possible Hakadosh Baruch Hu will be mamtzi a mirshal for a person to kill? Ella. Both of these people, the victim and the murderer, are both Rishoyim. He was Chayiv Golos. Vein Eid B'Dover, but there were no Eidim, so therefore Gula Golos. The person couldn't tell him to go into Golos. Vanerek, the victim, was Chayiv Misa because he was Ritzech B'Mezid, but there were no Eidim. Eid B'Dover Nerek. Hakadosh Baruch Hu mizamnom lepundik echod. Hakadosh Baruch Hu makes it that they should both be in one place. So now we can go back into the Gemara. Makos v'daber b'shnei b'nei adam shehargu es hanefesh. Echad harg b'shoigig ve'echad harg b'mezid. Lozeh ein edim v'lozeh ein edim. And there are no edim for either one. Hakadosh Baruch Hu mazminon lepundik echod. They both end up in the pundik where there's people around. It's a hotel. There's plenty of witnesses there. Zeh sharg b'mezid yoshev tachas hasulam. He's sitting under the ladder. V'zeh sharg b'shoigig yored b'sulam will be coming down the ladder. But nofel alav, and he falls off on the murderer b'mezid v'argo, and he kills him. Zeh sharg b'mezid nerak. So now the person who killed b'mezid now got killed. V'zeh sharg b'shoigig goyla. And the person who killed b'shoigig will go into goals because there will be people around. So I just want to be more when someone's coming down the ladder and he slips and he falls on the guy, it's his backside, otherwise known as an ass, that kills him, right? That's why the word assassin has the word ass in it twice, because that's how he killed him. Omar, that's not brought down in any of the Rishonim. Omar Rabba Bar Rav Huna. Rabba Bar Rav Huna said, Omar Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Huna. Omar Rav Huna, Omar Rabba Lozer, Mina Torah, Umina Neviim, Umina Ksuvim. I'm going to prove from the Torah, from the Neviim, and from the Ksuvim the following halacha: B'derech she'adam rotze leilach ba malichin oisai. Because Baruch Hu lets you go where you want to go. I say, B'derech she'adam rotze leilach malichin oisai. If a person wants to be a letz, Hashem lets. So where does it say that? Min Torah d'ksiv, Hashem told Bilam, Lo yisei lechimohem. Don't go with them. Uchsiv, and the next day, what did Hashem tell Bilam? Kum lechitom, because Bilam clearly wanted to go. Min hanavim, d'chsiv es Hashem alekecha melametcha. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is teaching you lahoyel to help you. Madrichacha b'derech teilech. Let's look at the pasuk quoted in the Torah Orah Shalem. We get the full pasuk read with the right girsa. It says over here, Koyamar Hashem, Goyalcha, Kadosh Yisrael, Ani Hashem Alekecha, I am the Ebeshem, Melametcha Lahoyel, I'm teaching you to go the right path to help you. Madrichacha B'derech Telech. I'm teaching you and I'm guiding you in the right way to go. But B'derech Telech ultimately means in the derech that you're going, I'm going to help you. And that's what you see. That's the Gemara's Rasha of B'derech She'adam Roitze Leilech Melichin Oisai. Okay? On Minaksuvim, Dechsiv, Im Leleitzim Hu Yalitz, Velanovim Yitin Chein. Rabbi Rees spoke about this extensively between Mincha and Ma'ariv on the second day of Yom Tov. Im Leitzim hu Yolitz, if someone wants to join a Chevra of Leitzim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? I think the pasuk says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens the gate and lets him. If someone wants to be mitzaref with good people, then it says Messiah, you help him. So the way Rabbi Rees learned, it's not my lichanoi, they just let him go. They don't push him that way. It's only for something that's good. But according to Rabbi Rees, which he quoted from Rashi, is only if someone wants to do good, then it's my lichanoi, because the Baruch Hu pushes him to go. But if someone wants to do bad, Hashem lets him go. Amar Avuna, a Retzeach that was exiled to the Miklat, Umatzai Goyal Adam. And he's not and killed Goyal. We're going to now darshan this pasuk to see how we understand it. So let's go to the test down at the Torah Ara Shalom and let's read the pasuk. It says in the pasuk, Pen Yirdev Goyal Adam, you better get to the Ara Miklat fast. Why? Pen Yirdev Goyal Adam Acharei Retzeach. Why will the Goyal do this? Because he's angry. And you might actually catch him. Because there's a long way to get to the Arya Miklat, and the Retzeach might not get there in time. The Ko Nefesh, and now the Goyal Adam is going to kill the Retzeach and kill him. V'loy ein mishpat maves. V'loy ein mishpat maves can be touched in two ways. V'loy ein mishpat can be touched. The Goyal Adam is not Chayiv Misa, because the Goyal Adam has a right to kill the Retzeach. That's one shot that we're going to learn right now. And then the second shot the Gemara is going to teach us is V'loy and Mishpat Mavis is going on the Retzeach. The Retzeach doesn't have Mishpat Mavis, so the Goyal Adam is killing him wrongfully. So how you learn this word V'loy and Mishpat Mavis, this phrase, will determine whether or not the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill the Retzeach. If you learn V'loy and Mishpat Mavis is going on the Goyal Adam, then the Goyal Adam can kill the Retzeach and he's not chayiv. But if you learn V'loy and Mishpat Mavis is going on, the Retzeach does not Mishpat Mavis, he wasn't yet condemned to death, then the Goyal Adam would be chayiv for killing him. Now, how would you read the rest of the pasuk? V'loy and Mishpat Mavis, ki loy soynai hu loy mitmel shilshay. So if you learn V'loy and Mishpat Mavis is referring to the Goyal Adam and he has a right to kill the Retzeach. Ki loy soynai hu loy mitmel shilshay. He doesn't hate the guy, he's just doing the Goyal Adam. That's upshot. But if you hold V'loy and Mishpat Mavis is going back on the Retzeach himself, the Mishpat Mavis, the Retzeach doesn't have a Mishpat Mavis. Why? At this point, we haven't determined anything if he was signed a lie. So he's not condemned to death. So you, Goyal Adam, don't have a right to kill him. So depending on how you learn that phrase, that will determine if the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill the Retzeach or not. So let's have a look here in the pasuk. Zok tehei Gemara. So the Goyal Adam found the Retzeach Hargoi before he got into Arimiklat Potter. Kosover V'loy ein Mishpat Maves is talking about the Goyal Hadam Hudichse. Meisei Frank the Gemara. V'loy ein Mishpat Maves v'Retzeach HaKosav V'daber. Is it referring to the Retzeach? Atam v'Retzeach oy ein ela b'Goyal Adam. So the Gemara Keshu Aimerloi v'Loy Soyneloi Mitmal Shoshaim. Who's that talking about? Hava Omer v'Retzeach HaKosav V'daber. It must be going on the Retzeach. So you see a Bryce here that learns not like you, that learns it's also to kill, for the Goyal Adam to kill the Retzeach. So who Damer Kaitana? There's a Machalikas Tanaim, whether or not the Goyal Adam is allowed to kill the Retzeach before the Retzeach makes it to the Miklat. The time we learned, V'loy ein Mishpat Mavis, the Goyal Adam HaKosav V'daber. At Omer b'Goyal Adam HaKosav V'daber, oy eino ela b'Retzeach, kishoy mekiloy soynei hulay mitmel shilshaim, harei Retzeach Omer. We're talking about the Retzeach already. Hamani Mikayim V'loy Mishpat Maves is b'Goyal Adam HaKosav V'daber. So here it's saying is the Kiloy Soinim Mitmel Shilshaim is regardless going on the Retzeach. The whole question is V'loy ein Mishpat Maves. What is that referring to? Is that referring to the Goyal Adam, and therefore the Goyal Adam who kills the Retzeach is Potter, or is it going on the Retzeach, and therefore the Goyal Adam who kills the Retzeach is Chayiv? Tanan we learned. Moishvin lo shnei Talmidei Chachamim shema yagernu b'derech. We're afraid that the Goyal Adam will kill the Retzeach on the way. But Yidabru Elov, they're going to speak. They're the ones who are going to speak to the Goyal Adam to stop him from killing the Retzeach. What are they going to tell him? My love, you know what they're going to tell him? The masturbate, they're going to tell him, you better not kill this Ritzach. The ikotel, if you're going to kill this Ritzach, barkatalahu, you're going to get killed for it. Maybe that's what they're going to tell him. So you have a raya that the Ritzach is not allowed to kill, the Goyal Adam is not allowed to kill the Ritzach. So that's not what they tell him. In the Tanya, the Dabre love, the Voim Haru Uyum Loy. They don't tell him, they don't give him a straw, you Goyal Adam, if you kill this Ritzach, you're going to get killed. Because you're not going to get killed. In fact, we learn Veloy Eid Mishpat Mavis is going on the Goyal Adam. But rather they tell him, they convince him not to kill. Yes, you have a right to kill him, but as a pastachnish, you're a shiner erlich, you're going to be involved in the murder. Let the Bezdin take its course and let follow the derech hatayra, not the derech hatayra to be the vigilante justice and to kill somebody, even though you think he deserves it. Bishkaga, bo ma'isa liyadai. He did it by mistake. He goes, you don't know yet. We don't have the facts of the case. We didn't go to din yet. So maybe he only killed B'shogeg, and now you're going to kill him. It's not the right thing to do. Reb Meir in our Mishnah, and here's the Brisa saying, "Who b'dabar the atzmai, let the Yitzhak speak for himself to convince the Goyal Adam not to kill him. Shnemer v'deh dvar Yitzhak." Amr Loi, this is part of the Brisa. It's not listed in our Mishnah. So Rabban answered, no. It's better if the Shoimrim, if his escorts speak on his behalf. Harbe shalichus oisa. A lot of times when you work through a third party, you could negotiate better. It works out better, which is what's happening right now with Iran. They don't want to have direct negotiations with the United States. They want to do it through an intermediary. Sometimes an intermediary is better when they ask for a concession. It's not as enraging because it's a third party. It's not the Ritzach himself. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. Amar Mar. Bishkoga b'ma'aseh liyadai. One of the things that the escorts Talmid Chachamim tell the Goyal Adam is he did a b'shogeg. Zok Gemara Pshita. They need to tell the Goyal Adam that this was shogeg. The b'mezid bar galus who? If it was mezid, would he be going into galus? If he was mezid, you take him straight to Bezdin to don him to kill him. Zok Gemara no. Even someone who's mezid goes to galus. But Tanya Rabbi Yosy Yehuda Aimer, right? That's in our Mishnah. We're quoting this from a Brisa, not from a Mishnah. Betchila, right away, no matter who you are, echad shogeg v'echad mezid makdimin or miklat, and then we decide what to do. Bezdin shochin u'mavin oisa misham. Bezdin summons them to now figure out what's going on. Mishin schayv misa hargu shenamar v'shalchu ziknei iroi v'lokchu oisa misham v'nosnu oisa biad goyal adam. So this brisa is a little bit more explanatory than our Mishnah. Our Mishnah just says hargu. The brisa sticks in from the pasuk that says v'lach oisa misham v'nos oisa biad goyal adam. Umeis umi shaloi nischay patru, which our Mishnah says, but the brisa elaborates and says shenemar v'tzilu ha'edos ritzach yad goyal adam. And Mishnah nischay golos machzir noishalim koymoi shenemar v'shivu oisa ya'eda el ir miklotoi asher noshava. Rabbi said, even if you don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, even if you want to hold that a mezid doesn't go to the Ari Miklat, according to the Torah's prescription, but anyway, every murderer is going to run on his own to the Ari Miklat, because they don't know. They think they don't know should be shaggy koldois be mezid in the koldois. Rabbi Daniel, I'm just finishing off to the bottom of the Amid, so I'll be done in like 2 minutes. Amar Rabbi Lozer, Ir Sharuba Roitzchen, a city that's Roiv Roitzchen, Eina Kailetes. That wouldn't work. So if it's full of Roitzchen, and this means even B'shoigig, if it's full of Roitzchen, then it would not. No, even if it's Roitzchen B'shoigig, there's many people there in the Ari Miklat. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. Shenemar v'daber ba'oznei ziknei ha'ir hi es dvorov v'loy shehushvu dvarim dvorov. They have to speak to the ziknei ha'ir who are erlich mentioned who didn't kill people. But if Roiv, the people, are already murderers themselves, it loses its potency. V'amar Shechem, where did it say it was? It says there's a lot of Reitzchem around. V'amar Rabbi Lozer, ir she'ein bo zikenim, ein keletes. The be'inan ziknei ha'ir v'leka. You don't have ziknei ha'ir because the Torah says you have to have ziknei ha'ir. There are no ziknei ha'ir. Ziknei ha'ir, the Rishonim teach not as Zakanim Mamish, that old people. It means a bezdin of 23. It means a bezdin of 23. Itmar, Ir Shein Bazakanim, Reb Ami Verbasi. There's a machlokes. Chad Omer Chilates, the Chad Omer Eina Chilates. The man Omer Eina Chilates, but in Zikna Yerveleka. The man Omer Chilates, Mitzvah Baal. And now we're talking about the Ir Shein Bazakanim. We're seeing how it's impacted Lagabe other elements. The Ir Shein Bazakanim, Reb Ami Verbasi. Chad Omer Natsa Baal Ben Tzara Moyer. You could have a Ben Tzara Moyer from such a city. The Chad Omer Ein Natsa Ben Tzara Moyer from such a city. The man Omer Ein Natsa Ben Tzara Moyer because being in Zikna Yerai. It says in the pasuk by a Ben Tzara Moyer. It says so if you don't have it, you don't have it. It's a mitzvah ba'alma. Take him to the zikna here. The ear chambers are kainim, another shayla Rabami Verbasi. Chadam mavi egla rufa, v'chadam ena mavi egla rufa. Again, the same story. L'madam ena mavi egla rufa, bein in zikna irahi. It says at the pasuk v'ya ira krayva el achalo v'lakhu zikna irahi. So therefore, v'laka l'madam mavia egla rufa is a mitzvah ba'alma. Why is the parsha of Roitzchin in the Torah said with the V'yedaber b'loshen Azar? This is not in the Torah. This is in Yeshua. When Yeshua was setting up the Or Miklat, it said V'yedaber Hashem al Yeshua leimar. Daber is a very strong loshen. Daber al b'nei Yisrael leimar. Tenu lachem es Or Miklat sher dibarte aleichem. You know why? Mepnei shein shel Torah. Since the tzivoy that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving Yeshua was already mentioned in the Torah, it used a loshen V'yedaber. Frank Gemara, remember the Chaldibur loshen kasha. You tell me that a loshen V'yedaber is like a tough loshen. Zok Gemara, I'll show you where the word daber is used, and it's a soft loshen. So in Kedichsiv, I'll prove to you that it's a tough loshen because by Yosef it said daber ha'ish adoinei arti tanu koshes. Yosef spoke to us tough, so you see the loshen daber is a very severe loshen. Frank Gemara, Batanya nidberu a nidberu elonoshon nachas. V'chein yomer yad ber amim tachtenu is a loshen nachas. That's more daber lechud, which is a loshen kosher, and yadber lechud, which could be a softer loshen. Okay, we'll stop here. And Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow we will learn Daf Yud Aleph. A good night, a good yontiv. We should be zoiche to all the bizas hayam. Tomorrow we're learning about the bizas hayam. We're learning. We should be zoiche to all the bizas hayam.